Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. Wanted to continue talking about the liabilities of whiteness. There's 23 of them or 24 of them, just so you know. So I think we might be on 6 or 7. So get ready. And like I said, if you have more, please share with me. This one is, again, for me, one that I had to reflect on. That whiteness tricks us into thinking the playing field is level. And maybe you all know what that means, right? People talk about the playing field as level, meaning that we all show up in this country the same, that we all go to kindergarten, that we all sort of have, go to school, to graduate high school, that we all are given that access and that opportunity, and we all can have the American dream, right? That the playing field is level and everybody has the same opportunities. And whiteness tricks us to believe that. And it is very complicated story, but it really does start, I think, with housing. It starts with racist policies that have excluded Black and brown people from living in communities with white people. And so one of the ways that whiteness was able to trick us is by putting us in communities, right? And when I say putting us, I mean that the federal government, the FHA, the banks, there were so many people, entities, systems that were complicit in this, that gave white people a lot of access and opportunity to low interest mortgages, access to buy their first homes, especially after World War II. The GIs that came back, all white GIs, were given access to low interest mortgages, get a home, a free education, could go to Harvard, could go to all these institutions for free. And the federal government excluded Black people. And the government felt that Black and white people shouldn't live together, that white people should live in neighborhoods by themselves. They looked at it as a financial hindrance, right? That somehow if there were cross-racial, mixed-race neighborhoods, that would be a detriment to financial existence, even though before the 1930s there were plenty of mixed-race neighborhoods all over the country. I know Langston Hughes grew up in a mixed-race neighborhood, and then it was divided and separated. And you can do your history. You can look as to why that happened. What's really interesting is to think that it had a lot to do, certainly with white supremacy and racism, but again, also communism. They felt that the government and the people in power were fearful of communists, and the communist governments or people thinking that maybe they were, communists living in this country. And so they felt that if they gave access to white people homes, gave them land, gave them access to buy property and have something that they owned, that they would be less likely to become communist. And there's no way that they were going to trust Black, brown people, indigenous people with any of that, because they already thought, again, that communism, because of, again, when you have treated Black and brown people for 400 years the way white people in the government had, again, they certainly were definitely not trusting, but again, for the wrong reasons. And so they separated us. And I think for whiteness, you're put in these neighborhoods. You grow up in these neighborhoods. I know I did, in a predominantly white neighborhood. I didn't even know, again, that it was a segregated community. I didn't even know that there were people of color in the world. Did not even understand it. And so, a lot of our ignorance, a lot of the liability comes from our separation, our lack of connection across race. We didn't grow up with people of color. We don't know their culture. We don't know or understand their histories. We don't understand our own history, right? So to believe that the playing field is level is something that we were always told. But I think what's interesting is as we grew up as white people in predominantly white neighborhoods and being taught by white teachers, being taught by a Eurocentric education system, they were only talking about us when they talked about a level playing field. I don't even think Black and brown people were even in the thought process, right? And we might have thought that in a sense as we started to learn more and get into history of high school and again maybe even college, as we started to again maybe be in connection and neighborhoods. Maybe in college we certainly hopefully were engaging with people of color, people across difference, and so even to be able to again think that the playing field is level when you're being taught that it is, that everyone can have the American dream. So what does that really do to you? What does that, and how does that hinder you in your ability to be able to understand the world around you, right? And I think that's a big liability for us to believe that the playing field is level, and that certainly on the one aspect, well, if white people are all in charge and white people run everything and white people own everything, well, it must mean that they worked harder and they did everything right. Right? That somehow they pulled themselves up by their bootstraps and they were able to, they were better. And so they deserve to have that power, right? If we believe from that playing field or, from the access and opportunity that everybody had was the same. But again, even if we just take housing, which again, I could go into education and healthcare and the justice system and so many other systems that affect so many of us that in such different ways, that poverty, again, is part of the system, where, again, we as a system and as a white supremacist country keep people in poverty, and not just Black and brown people, white people too live in poverty, right? Again, because there's a majority of us, more white people live in poverty. And again, this critical thinking and this complex thinking, you really need to have to be able to understand how the world works. And so we don't deny people's reality, that we do understand. At the end of the day, no one is saying you don't deserve what you have, but you have to understand that you provided or got access and opportunity that someone else didn't have, right? And so how do we want to live with that? Is that sort of aligning our values, that somehow I get something that somebody else doesn't get, and it's not even based on anything that I did or anything that I, again, should deserve? How can I be entitled to something that I didn't deserve? And, there's an amazing video. I'll try to put it in the comments. It's like a 4-minute cartoon, if you will, an animation about the opportunity race. And it really shows, again, how the playing field is not level. White people have been given so much access and opportunity. You can listen to so many speeches of Malcolm X, of Martin Luther King, of James Baldwin, of Toni Morrison, of Fannie Lou Hamer. Again, we have to understand and then decide, is this part of our motive? Is this part of our motive that we don't want a system like this? We don't want access and opportunity that other people don't have, because then we're promoting people that don't deserve to have those positions, or maybe not the best people to be in those positions, right? Which is another liability of whiteness I'll talk about soon, about how it just allows us to be mediocre, because we really don't have to try hard because it's already set up for us. So what are we losing in this? What are we losing? I'll never forget this white woman that I was, working with. We were doing a protest after George Floyd was brutally murdered. And she said, Michelle, I'm really into all of this, and I really want to be anti-racist. I really want, to be a part of this, but not if it affects my child. I don't want to give up anything for my child. And so I'll support you, but at the end of the day, I want everything my child deserves. And you know what? That's not an attitude that we can have. That is just not an attitude. If we are going to be a beloved community and to be able to care and think about all of us, we have to think about all of our children collectively. And I'm not saying that her child doesn't deserve everything, but so does every other child. And so do Black and brown children, because we are losing out so much in this country. We are making a huge mistake, and we will regret it.